All right, so remember how I said yesterday that when we sent out the survey to you all, thank for everyone who filled that out. It gives us a lot of good information that we pass on to speakers to make this better for you all. And the number one thing people said they wanted in terms of content was, how can I build this business into something that I can sell for a lot of money? And so there's kind of two components to that. There's one is actually building the business. There's learning all the strategies you're learning here, strategies you've learned in ASM, Amazing.com membership from other people, other events and all that sort of stuff. So there's all that piece. And then there's the actually selling it piece. It's not like you build this fantastic business and someone walks into your doorstep and they're like, hey, I'm ready to buy it now. Like, you have to put things in order from an accounting standpoint. You have to put things in order from just a basic business standpoint, making sure it's producing good, consistent cash flow, and so you can get a realistic sort of expectation in terms of the exit value of the business. Now, the cool thing is we've been at this now for 5 years or so, teaching people how to build this kind of business, and so we've seen the whole growth cycle for a lot of people. We've had people that started with us a few years ago, and then now they're basically financially free forever because they built a great business which can produce great cash flow. You can build one of these businesses, and we have members that do it, that produce great cash flow, and they allow you to live wherever you want, however you want, whatever lifestyle you want, so that's great. But then there's the other piece of actually turning that into real money into your pocket. That's a big lump sum, and then you can invest it in some, whatever you want to invest in conservative investment, basically live off the interest, and you're sort of, as long as you don't blow through all the money, you're done financially for the rest of your life. It's an amazing thing. That's all possible with this business. But a big piece of it is actually selling the thing. And so the next two speakers, they've helped a lot of our members do just that. They know what it takes. They're in that area of this business every single day, helping people get ready to sell these businesses and actually selling them. They know how to find the buyers. They know what the buyers are looking for. They know what you need to get in order from a standpoint of actually selling the business. So we got a lot of people in here in a lot of different stages of business. We've got some people that are still getting their first product live, brand new ASM 7 members, so no problem whatsoever. We've got some people in here that have $20, $30 million a year businesses selling a lot on Amazon. So a lot of different stages. And what we always say is that if your end goal is to cash out and sell this kind of business, or even if it's not, this sort of information is still extremely valuable to you because it allows you to really get all your ducks in order. So you're not sort of surprised when the time comes and you think all you had to do was ramp up revenue and you're ready to sell it, and you're like, crap, I still got to get all this stuff in order, and so I'm 6 to 12 months away from that, even being able to get started. But if you start thinking about this stuff now, which is why we love to have this kind of presentation here, then you'll be ready when the time comes, and you can really change your life forever. So I'd like to give us a huge hand. And by the way, y'all have been doing a fantastic job. Let's take it to another level today. Remember, the more you give the speakers, the more they're going to give to you. So let's give a huge hand to Jason Gueritas and Ron Matheson.
Here's the clicker. Press for Jason. Matt, good to see you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Gueritas. This is Ron Matheson. We're here from websiteclosers.com. Website Closers is the largest tech and internet business brokerage in the world. Currently, we represent over 300 clients, everything from SaaS companies to internet companies, but of course, many of those are Amazon FBA businesses. And so we've been asked to come here today to speak to you about the process of getting your business ready to sell. Now, a lot of the slides that we prepared here today are, we could go an hour for each bullet point, but we're not going to have that kind of time today. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through them really quickly, and then after we're done, we're going to ask if there's any questions, and we find that to be the most powerful process, where each of you might have questions and others probably have questions as well. So we would ask that if you do have a question, please think about it. There's a microphone there and there for when we get done. Many of you out there we already know today. We've either already sold your company or we're in the process of selling your company. We actually have some clients out there right now that are signing here at the Venetian for a nice business. I think that's a $4 million deal, so congratulations to them. I won't mention you by name. Yep. And many others, we begin the process of talking to you through your financials, getting you prepared, and that's kind of what this is about today. So what we're going to do, for those that haven't met us before, we're going to introduce ourselves really quickly, and then again, we're going to fly through the slides. Ron?
Good morning, everyone. I'm an ex-retailer. I created a national chain of stores. I had 22 stores in 7 states. Most of them were art galleries, some were art and framing, and even a couple of other concepts we had. At one point, we had 4 separate stores in one mall. Along the way, I got out of that in the early 2000s, played golf for a few years, decided I needed to do something I was actually good at. So I made an offer on a business. It failed due diligence. I made 3 more offers. They all failed due diligence. I thought if I was going to buy a business, I probably should see it from the inside, so I became a broker. Along the way, I've done probably 80 to 100 deals in bricks and mortar. Around 2010, I migrated towards the digital space. I realized at that point that is the future. It's exciting, dynamic, and there was no turning back. Shortly afterwards, I met Jason. We launched Website Closers. We've created the largest company in our sector. And so I think one of the reasons that we're particularly good at what we do is not only are our talents well suited for what we do, but we also have a great team of independents, and that's lenders, due diligence experts, accountants, lawyers that specialize in this particular sector. And so that's a little bit about me.
And just quickly about me, I'm an attorney. Don't hold that against me. I practiced corporate law for about 13 years. After that, I started my own company, United Commerce Group. So I do exactly what you guys do. I have 16 divisions in my company of e-commerce companies, Amazon companies. We're currently the fastest growing company in Orlando, 67th fastest in America. And we have Website Closers as one of our companies, and then we also have Valley Biggs, which is our middle market M&A firm. You have the clicker? So again, quickly, we're going to go through this because I'm more interested in questions than any of you might have. But just so you have for your own notes, here's some of the things we're going to go through today on what we see as a successful M&A process and the steps that you can take to get there.
Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is that you have to prepare early. You know, the first thing you want to focus on is maximizing profitability. The next thing, and if we mention this more than once and it becomes a little redundant, it's not. Sell on the upswing. I'm going to give you 3 examples. Let's say a company is making $1 million a year in profit. Let's say that that company is growing quickly. That company is worth at least 4 to 5 times that multiple. Let's say we take a company that's making $1 million a year and they made the same amount last year and they're not growing. That's got a defined value. It will receive less interest, probably in the 3-ish range is what the value of that company is. Now let's say a company made $1.2 million last year and it's down to $1 million this year. That company, if it got 2 to 2.5 times on the multiple, that would be a good multiple. So obviously focus on selling when the time is right, and the time is right when you're doing well, not when you've leveled off or you start to go down. Reduce your COGS and expenses. Kind of take a look at what you're doing, and if there's ways you can save money, do so, because keep in mind, every dollar that you make the company more profitable comes back at anywhere from 3 to 6 times on that. We prefer to see 2 years of tax returns, but that isn't necessarily a prerequisite. We do have one company we actually sold for 7 figures that was not 365 days old, and we actually had a bank on board to do that deal. But preferably, the longer the company, the better. 2 tax returns or more, that's perfect. Once again, start talking to a professional earlier. Don't wait until the day you decide to sell. Come to us earlier and we'll tell you what you need to do to make your company more attractive.
Ownership redundancy. What we mean by this, and it's interesting for Amazon companies, a lot of people that own Amazon FBA companies either run it by themselves or maybe it's a husband and wife team. And more often than not, they have virtual assistants from Upwork and other places that help them. They may not even have employees. One of the things we do coach is that you think about either a VA or an employee, let them know the operational processes and procedures for your company. It's important because when a buyer comes and looks at the company, they want to make sure that it's stable and that when they take over on day one, there's someone that can help them if a customer service issue comes up, if they have an inventory issue, who to speak to with the suppliers. All those things can be aided and give a buyer more comfort during the diligence process if they know that there's somebody there that's going to come along with the company. It's not mandatory, and certainly we've sold a lot of companies that didn't have any employees or VAs, but if you can do that, it's a smart move before you begin the sale process.
Cost efficiencies. Okay, one of the things you want to focus on, there's a few things that we'll coach you on, like cleaning up your balance sheet, obtaining supply contracts. You know, keep in mind every buyer and every bank wants to make sure that when they take over your company, the transition is smooth, that they can make the same amount of money or more than you're making right now. Obviously, if they have a problem with any of the vendors, that's a problem. So even if you get a contract, an email acknowledgement showing that, you know, the pricing will remain the same, that, you know, anything you can do to solidify that with your vendors, it's a good move. If you can do volume buying, that will increase your margins. Once again, every dollar that drops to the bottom line comes back as a multiple of 3 to 6. Backup suppliers. One question everybody is going to ask you is, if your vendor goes out of business or something goes wrong with your vendor, what are you going to do? You have to have vendor B and C ready to go. They're going to ask the question. Anything you're doing in the way of unnecessary expenses, kind of get rid of. We're okay with add backs. We'll coach you on that. Certain ones are easy. Travel, health insurance, that sort of thing. Meals and entertainment, we're always good with those. But other things that you're piling on, be careful with that. It'll cost you. Monetize your assets. Okay, let's take, for example, inventory. You have to leave a buyer in a position so that when he takes over, he's going to do great. He's got to get off and running, he's got to do well. But let's say you have certain parts of your inventory that are not really selling much and you're overstocked on them. There's no reason to leave an overstocked inventory for a buyer. So the certain items that you can monetize, that you can cash in on, you want to do that.
Financials, taxes, and controls. The most important part of this is making sure that you're talking to an accountant early on, and preferably also us at Website Closers, because accountants don't sell businesses, they just know how to get the financials ready. And there's a big difference between the financials that you might have in preparing your business for sale and the financials you might have for your own daily operations just to understand profitability and cash flow. So what we recommend is that you do talk to an accountant early on, even if you're using Xero or QuickBooks or some other software, still get an accountant involved to give you the monthly financials. It's not an expensive process, and it will save you a lot of time and angst as you're getting ready to sell the company, because the number one thing and the first thing anybody cares about with respect to your company are your financials. Everything after that, of course, are value propositions we add to the value of your company, but your financials are key to this process.
Okay, let's talk about sales mix a little bit. SKU diversification. If you have a company that has a hero SKU, you generate 70 to 80% of your profits from one particular SKU, that will be, it's not that we can't sell it, because we can and we'll do well with it, but it'll be less attractive. So if you can diversify your SKU mix and the revenue that's being generated from it, that's a big positive. Scale into multiple categories. You know, once again, the more diverse your company is, the more attractive it is. Selling on other platforms, such as, you know, an international market or Walmart, always advisable, along with your website and social media. Now, we know you're not going to generate a lot of capital from those particular, you know, items in most cases, but the more you can do that, the better. Subscription revenue. Amazon has Subscribe and Save. It's called recurring revenue. That is a huge thing. Take, for example, if a SaaS company comes to us, the multiples are much higher on a SaaS company than they are on an e-commerce company. The reason why is because they have that recurring revenue. Now, because it's so new, we haven't been able to package it into our evaluations at this point, but that day is coming, and it's coming soon. The more data we have, the more that we can support that with buyers and a bank. And believe me, your multiples will go up with recurring revenue. So if you can move in that direction, by all means do.
Scale opportunities and forecast. As you probably already do now, you're always thinking for the future. You've always got to order inventory early on to get prepared for what's going to happen in the next season. When you're preparing your business for sale, you want to think about 2 years out. You want to think about where your company's going to be financially. You're going to have to think about what inventory you're going to need to spend. If you're going to launch new products, obviously there's a cost to launch an ASIN on Amazon, and so you think about all those things in the process and you put together a plan of action. We can help with that. But when we do sell your business out in the marketplace, when we market your business, one of the things that really makes it exciting is how it's going to scale and having the ability to execute on that scale right at closing. Removing personal liabilities and expenses. This is with a small business, inevitably there's going to be some kind of expenses, personal expenses in the SG&A. That's okay. The banks know it, we know it, everyone knows it, don't worry about it. It's what's called an add back, and we do add those back. But what we ask is that when you're preparing to sell your business, think about some of those things and maybe reduce them so that we have the fewest amount of add backs as possible in your company. It just makes it look more attractive, makes the books look cleaner.
Create a vision. Now, first of all, we'll talk about cash flow. It's critical. You know, the buyer needs to know he's going to hit the ground running. He needs to know there will be continuity from the moment you give him his company. Number two, have a mission statement. Understand what the future of your company is. Every buyer is going to look at you and they're going to ask you the question, why are you selling? I've bought a lot of companies, and believe me, I looked at the person I was working with, dealing with, and I would say that was a critical question. You have to portray the future to them. You have to tell them what can be done in the future, and you have to let them know that you're not selling because you want to get out, because there's something coming around the corner that you see that they don't. So that is absolutely 100% critical. In case I haven't mentioned this already, sell on the upswing. You want to sell downwind. I'm telling you, when your company is starting to drop or show signs that it stopped growing, the excitement goes. When you're growing, you're going to get multiple offers, you're going to get a higher multiple. Believe me, it's a great place to be. In other words, let the buyer know the future is bright.
Just quickly, because I do want to get to some questions. Again, the microphones are here and here. We only have 6.5 minutes left, so if you have some questions, please go ahead and head over, because I'm going to go through these quickly. Profitability and working capital. Obviously, as you're getting ready to sell your company, you want to make sure that you're maximizing profitability. The company that buys you is going to buy you based on a multiple of that profitability, especially for this kind of business. It's different for other internet companies and tech companies, but for Amazon companies, it's definitely going to be a multiple of your earnings. Working capital. If you're a growing company, that's going to be always a constraint that you have to worry about. Do I buy more inventory? Do I focus on, the fact that I want to be profitable? You want to keep your foot on the pedal, go as hard as you can until it's closed. You don't ever want to stop. So whatever it takes to continue to scale your company, you keep doing that. It's our jobs to go in and show that these are things that you're spending money on and that they need to be added back into the process so that you're not hit because you're trying to grow your company. Seek professional advice early. Obviously, we think we're the best, but no matter what, make sure that you're talking to a business broker early on that specifically focuses on this sector, has closed hundreds of them, and can help you throughout the entire process. We don't just introduce people and then they just start talking. We handhold everybody all the way through the process from the beginning to the end, and you don't owe us anything until that business closes. All right, questions and answers. I'll start with you.
I think I speak for everyone here when I say that none of us want to be cut off from the future online e-commerce economy, but I would think that buyers would want a non-compete clause. So traditionally, how do you see that play out between a buyer and a seller? If I want to sell, I don't necessarily want to not ever do Amazon businesses again.
Good question. One that comes up all the time. A non-compete is going to be necessary. It's going to be usually 3 to 5 years long. It's going to be focused on the products that you're selling now, though. And even if you're in a category that has a lot of different subcategories, we're going to try to hone it in on just the subcategories that you're selling. So that way you have the opportunity to start fresh again. And trust me, we have a lot of people, some of them are out here, that have already sold companies and that already had multiple other Amazon accounts and that are coming back to us. We've got people that have come back to us 4, 5, 6 times. So that's also part of our job, is to ensure that your non-compete is in line with reality, and we work with the attorneys on that as well. Let me go on this side.
Just a quick question. Who are your typical buyers? Are they people who are retired and looking for a steady income, or who would be your typical buyer buying an Amazon business?
It depends on the size of the business. If it's less than, say, $5 million, most likely that deal is going to go through the SBA process. I would say roughly 80 to 90% of all deals under $5 million do go SBA. That's good for you as a seller because you're going to get roughly 90% of the entire deal at the closing table in cash. And so that's a good thing. Those buyers are a lot of people that have done well in corporate America. They're ready to get out on their own and do some things. They don't want to start from scratch. And they see your opportunity for them to be able to scale it given the experience that they have. If it's over $5 million and under $20 million, that's a different kind of buyer. Those are more small family offices, private equity groups, venture capitalists. There's a lot of different kinds of buyers there. As an example, we have one portfolio buyer in New York City that's purchased 3 companies from us. I think they've spent a total of 19 or 20 million on all the businesses. And I think they have a total of 20 businesses. They do 200 million in revenue, over 200 employees. I'm sure that they'll roll an IPO at some point. That's a different kind of buyer. So there's all different kinds of buyers. We currently have about 300,000 followers worldwide because of all the deals that we do. So as you can imagine, if there's somebody out there looking for a deal, they're going to see it on our platform.
So what's the average brokerage fee and what are the tax implications to selling my business? So in other words, if I want, say, to pocket $1 million in my pocket, what do I need to do as far as working the math to come up what number I need to sell my business for to say I want this to be the bottom line to me after taxes, after brokerage fees?
On the tax side, it depends. I hate to say it depends every time, but it's true, it does. We can help you with that. We have independents that work with us that can help you through the entire tax process. And so it's not just, what am I going to get at the closing table and how's that going to be affected by taxes, but what am I going to do after closing and how can I impact and reduce my taxable income at that point as well. So those are 2 different things. We have to kind of dig in with you, but trust me, that comes up in every single deal and we do help with that process. On the fee side, below $3 million, we are a flat fee. It's usually 10%. Above $3 million and below $20 million, we work off what's called a reverse layman. So we start at 6% and we go up to 10%. We're aligned at the hip with you, so the more we make for you, the more we make. So we obviously are aligned with you to get the very highest purchase price possible, and that's why a lot of people are attracted to us. If it's above $20 million, we'll have a conversation.
Hi. Is there any importance of how you are currently incorporated?
Great question. Not necessarily, but let's make sure that you do have an LLC or a C Corp set up. You don't want to go out there as a sole proprietor without any kind of an entity because that will make people a little bit scared. But I will tell you that we have actually sold Amazon companies where people use their social security number to start the account. So we usually set up an entity for them and move on past that. And it looks like I only have time for one more question, so this is it.
Is it true that the valuation of an e-commerce business is based off of the gross sales rather than the bottom line, which is the traditional business way to value a company?
The valuation of an e-commerce company is based off of what's called your discretionary earnings. So it's your EBITDA plus usually the salary of the ownership, any personal expenses that are on the SG&A, and any one-time business expenses that a new buyer would never have again. The multiples for our firm, which is much different than a lot of other firms, start at about 3.5 and go up to 6. Although I will say we did list a company for $55 million, Amazon FBA company for $55 million. We had 200 responses to it, almost 2 full priced offers from 2 funds that have over $2 billion in funds. And that was a 9 times TTM, or trailing 12 months, and a 22 times a 22 times TTM and a 9 times a pro forma that we had put together. So it really depends on the company. It depends on the opportunity, the scale. If there's multiple brands, if it's international, there's a lot of things that go into the value propositions of a company. But it's definitely based off of discretionary earnings. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. I wish we had more time.